Val di Sole is just another venue, right? It's just another stop on the World Cup calendar as it bounces round between, curiously enough, just Europe. But there's something about it that delivers amazing racing, whether it's the speed, the length, or the overall physicality. There is some massive winning margins here, as well as some amazing acts, both of technical skill as well as athleticism. In this episode of Racing Rewind, I wanted to look back at some of the wildest runs from the famous Italian venue and give my personal countdown of the most exciting runs not only to happen at the Italian racetrack, but maybe in mountain biking ever. So, wildest runs at Val di Sole. Let's get into it. Vergier is an artist, and in fact, when comparing the surgical precision of Bruni and the gladiatorial aggression of Piron, it seems quite fitting to have someone that rides with a controlled yet creative flair. In some ways, his 2022 season was a real success. Third at World Champs and second in the overall is not to be sniffed at. However, in other ways, it wasn't quite what he would have wanted. After missing Mont Saint-Anne through a shoulder injury, and then only getting second in the overall because Vinales sat out the final race in Italy, it really seemed like he had some unfinished business when it came to the final round of the year. And finished business he certainly did. The way he could make sense of the upper section in something like a state of hectic flow, as well as combining that with some real precision moves in the techier parts, it makes you understand why he has a reputation as one of the smoothest riders perhaps ever to do it. Some of the inside lines were more than just showboating or trying to make the shortest way down the mountain. It was all about avoiding the massive holes which were developing at a rate of knots. That year, the whole course was quilted in moon dust, which filled the holes to begin with, but made for a very quickly deteriorating track. And it meant that Loris relied on a huge amount of racecraft to avoid the holes the other riders were making and delivered a fast, smooth run in quite amazingly rough conditions. Hart has won pretty much everything in World Cup downhill except an overall title. The closest he came was in 2016, where he was pipped by Gwin by a measly 26 points, which really isn't much over the course of a season. It was quite an interesting season in some ways because in the opening 4 rounds he scored a 10th and 3 4th places, and then went on to win the final 3 World Cups of the year in a row, which would normally be enough to claim you the overall, yet still only managed second that year. Gwin actually won less World Cups than Dunne that year, with 2 to Hart's 3. However, by the time World Champs rolled around, it felt like Dunne was going to do anything to keep that ball rolling, and went 4 wins in a row with that final win in Val di Sole. Interestingly enough, it was something of a party race for Mondraker, who got 1, 2 and 3, with Hart, Laurie Greenland and Flo Payet taking the top 3 steps in quite a remarkable clean sweep of a World Champs podium, and it must have been a dream for the brand. Laurie Greenland had enjoyed a lot of success at Val di Sole before, not least in the aforementioned second place at World Champs, as well as another second place the year before his win in 2018. Now, he'd been bubbling away for years and was known as a formidable talent. However, he never quite got things going for that World Cup win. In one of his final years on that Mondraker setup, he finally came good, and come good he certainly did, demolishing the field by around 3 seconds. Laurie was a formidable talent in juniors, and when he came to elite, for a lot of people, it was a question of when and not if he took a win. However, he must have known he was on such a heater in that run, but he still went for the infamous inside Sam Hill line, which ended fairly disastrously for the Australian. It was great to see him take so much risk, because obviously he doesn't know how far up he is, and is indicative of just how hard you have to push on one of the longest, toughest and most physical courses in the world. Jackson Goldstone is a certified wild man. To hear him speak, he sounds like a nice kid from the neighbourhood who helps old ladies cross the road and sweeps up leaves on his own dime. But when it comes to downhill racing, he is a cold-blooded assassin. Horrible gaps, that weird sort of up-down hands and feet pump he does over everything, which makes him not only generate huge amounts of speed, but seemingly glide over the gnarliest sections of track you can possibly imagine. And not to forget, him nearly going out the front door at Mach 10 in one of the opening turns, whilst then absolutely destroying the next berm with his nuts on his stem. It was one hell of a run. He seemed almost erratic on those top turns, almost overexcited before he locked in harder than Davis Clark on a Monday morning, and managed to make sense of the track in a way that few others could. He just doesn't seem to suffer from hang-ups on the rear wheel like other riders do, and the way he rides a bike sometimes just doesn't even seem to make sense. In some ways, he's got a similar style to 2019 winner and now teammate Laurie Greenland, where his head is just so stable and everything below is going up and down, extending and contracting to keep his head just absolutely level. It's an amazing style, and when it comes to making smooth out of rough, he's currently one of the best to do it. When I say BMX, you say background. BMX, BMX. Now, 10 years ago, if you wanted the World Cup field absolutely demolishing, you called 0800 Gwin, and he would turn up and just kill people's dreams there and then. He is an amazing athlete and a really late comer to downhill. Let's not forget, he did his first season of downhill in 2009. And that wasn't even a full season, he came in halfway through. His ascent to the top was as rapid as his riding, and he changed the sport forever. To give you an idea of just how dominant he was, if you look at the 14 races of the combined 2011 and 12 seasons, he won 9 of them, podiumed at another 4, and then didn't start another. The hit rate is absolutely amazing in a sport where sometimes people are lucky to win one World Cup their entire career. He made it like turning up to work, and his consistency was unbelievable. When you look at the podium of that 2012 race, it consisted of junior world champion Cam Cole, Val di Sole winner Greg Minnaar, Val di Sole winner G Atherton, and Val di Sole winner Mark Beaumont. And he put 8 seconds into second place. It's like he was doing a whole different sport. Looking at his fork setup, it's like he just got the spring out of a tractor, made it fit, chose where he wanted to go, and then hung on for dear life. Those forks were unbelievably stiff, and it was kind of the talk of the town, how he could even hold on. It's also remarkable that he managed to find grip on the braking bumps and in the holes of that fast deteriorating track. What he did with his bike and the way he rode it is one for the ages. It is amazing. Danny Hart's second place in 2011 was remarkable for a couple of reasons. Not least because it helped him recapture the form that had scored him a podium earlier on in the year, but also because of the ruthless manner in which he rode that racetrack. The bike isn't everything, of course, but downhill bikes of 10 years ago were in something of a weird space. Yes, they'd left behind some of the kooky dimensions of bikes prior to that and started to resemble the bikes that we tend to ride today, but the damping was just nowhere near what you'd be able to expect from even a trail bike in 2024. The lack of control meant that you just rode those things so unbelievably hard, and being a smooth rider on a course like this really reaped rewards. In some ways, the advancements they'd had in geometry had kind of outgunned the suspension they had available at the time. The way he rode that 26-inch Glory was quite amazing, and he did fantastically well to keep it so level and planted. You can see him picking up and pushing down with amazing precision to generate speed, and a smooth style on a track like that then, on 26-inch wheels with the bikes they had available, really could help deliver some quick times. That race run also had an interesting butterfly effect for sort of the whole legend of downhill. The way he exploded that last turn could have gone horribly wrong, and he was so close to high-siding, but he kept his feet up and it absolutely planted in an absolutely spectacular moment. In fact, if you watch the old live stream now, you can see one fan on the left of the picture just losing his fucking mind at what he's just seen. That loose riding style, which took him to that world champs win just a matter of weeks later in Champery, might never have got to be showcased at that wet Swiss venue. Because he could have gone out the front door, he could have high-sided and picked up a small broken wrist or a collarbone, and that would be it. That legendary run in Champery would never have happened, and all the memes and sayings we have because of Rob Warner's legendary commentary would just never have existed. When you think of legendary downhill runs, there are three. There is Danny Hart in Champery in 2011, there is Sam Hill in Champery in 2007, and there's Sam Hill in Val di Sole in 2008. I think one of the things that makes the Sam Hill runs almost more romantic is that he did something that no one else can do, and yet he didn't even win. That cool twist only makes them a bit more special to me and gives them a real what-if moment. Now, in that 2008 run in Italy, he delivered a rallying cry heard around the world for flat pedals. And when he came down, had he continued that run, the rider he would have deposed from the hot seat would have been Steve Peat. Now, Steve actually went on to win World Champs in Australia a year later, but it seemed fraught with so much emotion. And let's not forget, he only came behind Steve Peat, who eventually got second, by half a second. G. Atherton eventually came down that day to win World Champs, beating both Peat and Hill to the title. However, if you look at the splits, which aren't as numerous as the ones we have today, it does look like Sam Hill was on course to take the win, although perhaps not by as much as you might think. It was an amazing feat, if you'll excuse the pun, because the way he drags a foot through that last turn in that sort of tight Australian lycra gives this incredible juxtaposition and really shows the awkward growing pains downhill was going through at the time. It established Sam Hill as one of the greats, and the things he went to do for the next decade only made that point even further. And that's it. Those are my personal wildest runs from Val di Sole. Now I'm looking forward to going back there, getting sunburnt to a crisp and eating some overpriced gelato. It's going to be one hell of a time. To keep up with all the action, please do keep checking in on the Pinkbike homepage, as well as staying tuned for all Cathro's videos this week, and get in the comments to let me know why my ranking is wrong and who I missed. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.